Okay, and I'm going to start in Genesis 6:17. And it's going to kind of explain. And behold, I myself am bringing flood waters on the earth to destroy them under heaven, all flesh in which is the breath of life. Everything that is on the earth shall die, but I will establish my covenant with you, and you shall go into the ark, you and your sons, your wife, and your sons' wives with you. And every living thing of all flesh you shall bring 2 of every sort into the ark, to keep them alive with you. They shall be male and female, of the birds after their kind, of animals after their kind, and every creeping thing on the earth after its kind. 2 of every kind will come to you to keep them alive. And you shall take for yourself of all food that is eaten, and you shall gather it to yourself, and it shall be food for you and for them. See, God made this remarkable announcement. And Noah thought, well, what are you talking about? I mean, how many of us here would have, if we heard God say, go build an ark out there in that field, and I want it to be this big and this big, and how many of us would have listened to God's voice and told him to started doing that? We thought we'd hearing things, wouldn't we? We said, no, I don't think so. People will laugh at me and they'll make fun of me. And Noah probably thought that too, because he was a man just like you are. So he had to think to himself, okay, God, but he did it. He was obedient to God. And because he told him he was going to establish his covenant to him. And according to all that God commanded him, so he did. See, the Bible presents Noah as a great hero of God. He was an outstanding example of righteousness, and that's in Ezekiel 14:14. A preacher of righteousness, and that was in 2 Peter 2:5. And Noah condemned the world by offering salvation in the ark that the whole world rejected. And see, that's what I'm saying. Noah was a preacher of righteousness. And Noah was called righteous because he found favor with God, didn't he? And he walked with God. He lived in fellowship with him. He had faith in him. He trusted him. And for the second time, we see Noah's life contrasted with nearly everyone else on earth. Because what does it say that Noah wasn't? He wasn't evil, was he? His character was one of faithfulness and active obedience to the Lord. And his obedience foreshadows the faith. Cameron. Yeah. I know. You'll be okay. Chris? Front? Yeah. I'll need somebody to sit on the front.
Yes, ma'am.
Cameron says, speak for yourself. Okay, both Noah's and Abraham's faith was the evidence of an outworking presence of God, wouldn't it? Because if they didn't feel his presence, they wouldn't have had any faith at all, would they? they would not have listened or anything to what he was telling them. But they had enough faith, and that's why I named this lesson Active Faith. Sometimes we have to step out on faith and do what we don't want to do. Because Noah, it took a lot of time. It took a lot of resources. It took a lot of work, a lot of faith to build an ark like that, didn't it? And to get plus he had to preach to all of his family and try to get them in there too. And it said that only his intermediate family came. He had brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and everybody that he was kin to, because they was all kin to each other in a certain way. And they all probably laughed at him and made fun of him and everything, telling him, okay, look at you, Noah. You're building this ark, and they didn't even know what rain was. Because, see, the water always come up from the ground. And they had never seen rain. So that takes a lot of faith right there to say that, okay, Lord, I don't know what water is, or what rain is, but you said it was going to rain, so it's going to rain. So, I don't know if we understand that importance, do we? How much faith it took for Noah to do what God told him to do. So he believed God, and so he prepared the ark. And now I'm going to be in 7. Okay, then the Lord said to Noah, come into the ark, you and all your household, because I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. And when I was reading that, I have never really thought about this. But what does that say? Come into the ark. So what does that mean to you? What else? Safety. Okay. God was already in the ark. He was when you tell somebody to come to you, they're coming in to you. See, God was in there waiting with two of them with open arms in the ark, telling them to come in here. I'm going to take care of you. You're going to be safe in here. So, because how would that many animals be coming to the ark unless they knew God was going to be in there? Sometimes apparently the animals listened more than the people did, didn't they? But see, people had got so wicked, they didn't even understand the presence of God. They didn't feel it anymore. They had completely lost all presence of God, that he was on the earth calling to them, telling them, okay, come in here. Come to me. And that's how sometimes we get, don't we? We get like a scab over our heart, and that we don't even want to hear his voice. We don't want to come to him. We want to stay in our own little world, our own mind, in our mess, and we don't even understand the presence. We don't want to be in the presence of God. Because when we get in that presence, sometimes we see what we were, don't we? We see also we when we get open mind to what God has for us, we see what we lost or what we didn't have, or we become to be able to feel more. And we be able to see what God has for us. See, a lot of times we don't look when we're out in the world roaming around and not doing what we're supposed to be doing, we're not looking for God, are we? We're looking for everything that's around us, everything that everybody else is doing. And we do not feel any presence of God. We just think, well, I think I got to chill today. And when God's trying to talk to us, we'll think, well, I don't know where I heard that from. It must be in my head here telling me this is what I want for you. I don't want you to be out in that world. I want you to be in my presence. I want you to love me, to be with me, to feel my heart. And see, that's where a lot of times we don't want to feel his heart, do we? Because a lot of times we don't really understand it. So, Noah gathered, this is verse 2. You shall take with you 7 each of every clean animal, male and his female, 2 of each animals that are unclean, a male and his female, also 7 of each birds of the air, male and female, to keep the species alive on the face of all the earth. For after 7 more days I will cause it to rain on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. And I will destroy from the face of the earth all living things that I have made. And Noah did according to all that the Lord commanded him. Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters went down on the earth. So Noah and his sons, his wife, his sons' wives, went into the ark because the waters of the flood, of clean animals, of animals that were unclean, of birds, and of everything that creeps on the earth. 2 by 2 they went into the ark to Noah, male and female, as God has commanded Noah. And I thought about this. Y'all say I have a pretty good imagination sometimes. If I saw a line of animals walking toward a big boat going into it, you think I wouldn't want to follow those animals and see what they was going to do? I mean, I wouldn't just stood there and just looked at them. Wow, look at those animals. They're going in that ark there, or that big boat. Probably didn't know it was called an ark, but, and I think about that sometimes. I think, well, if I saw all those animals going into that ark, I just don't think I would have just been standing there looking at them thinking, well, I guess Noah and his family are crazy. I guess all those animals are crazy too. But that just shows how evil these people were, don't it? Because they didn't even the animals heard God's voice before the people did. Because what did he say? Come. He was calling all the animals, and they were listening. The ones, what? And I thought about this today too. Or how did the 2 animals that was supposed to come know to just be those 2? Yeah, it had to be God talking to them, didn't it? See, God even talks to the animals and they hear him. Sometimes before we do, the animals will hear him. Come up. I made them set up here. So Yahweh calls Noah and his family to go in the ark and to bring 7 clean and male, female. Besides these clean animals, he wants to bring 2 of every kind in there. All things that crawled on the ground, even snakes. And they probably just didn't roam around in the ark in there. They probably went straight to where they were supposed to in there. Because they knew where to go. They knew what was going to happen, I think, before we even know sometimes before what's going to happen. See, Noah and his family went in right away, but they didn't enter the ark until, 7 days they sat there. Think about that. The animals was there. They were there for 7 days. It sat there. See, it came to pass after 7 days that the waters of the flood were on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, the 17th day of the month, on the day of all the fountains of the great deep were broken up, and the windows of heaven were opened, and the rain was on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. See, Noah and the animals, his family, all had to wait for 7 days. Sitting in there waiting. You know, that took a lot of faith right there, didn't it? To sit there with all those animals, okay? Why are we just sitting here? What's going on? But, you know, I think God gave, because it didn't say he shut the door yet. I think he was giving the people outside a chance to come in. That's why else would they sit there for 7 days? After they had went in, the animals had went in, and they was sitting there for 7 days. And I think God was giving the people a chance to look at all this stuff that was going on out there and think, well, they've been in there all these days. Okay, maybe we need to go see what's going on. At least go see what's going on in there. But you know, they were probably, Noah and them was probably praying. I mean, what else would you do? That's all you could do, wouldn't it? Taking care of the animals. See, the Lord is not slow to fulfill his promise, as some count slowness, but is patient toward us, isn't he? He's not wishing for any should perish, but all should reach repentance. When Noah and his family entered the ark that last day, the door which had been opened for many days finally closed, didn't it? So when went in, as God commanded them, they went in. The flood was on the earth 40 days. The waters increased and lifted the ark, and it rose high above the earth. And the waters prevailed and greatly increased on the earth. And the ark moved about on the surface of the waters. And the waters prevailed exceedingly on the earth, and all the high hills under the whole heaven were covered. The waters prevailed 15 cubits upward, and the mountains were covered. And all flesh died that moved on the earth, birds and cattle and beasts, and every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, and every man. All in whose nostrils was the breath of the Spirit of life. All that was on the dry land died. So he destroyed all living things which were on the face of the ground, both man and cattle, creeping thing, and bird in the air. They were destroyed on the earth. Only Noah and those who were with him in the ark remained alive. See, the people out there were living in a passive denial, wouldn't they? And see, Jesus gave us a vivid portrayal of the situation as it was back then, is what when he returns also, isn't it? People are in so much denial because they're denying that he's going to come. For the coming of the Son of Man will be like the days of Noah. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark. and they did not understand until the flood came and took them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. Matthew 24:37 through 39. See, people are like now, they're following their ordinary pursuits. They're doing just what they want to every day. And if you notice, there's so much evil on the world right now. Everything is just getting worse and worse and worse. People are killing everybody. We're in a war with Iran right now. And all them people, when they first had them bombs that was dropped, they was probably in there just eating and drinking and talking about what all they's going to do to the United States until he dropped the bombs. And they don't tell how many people's been killed now because of it. In one day, Iran killed 33,000 of their own people because they were protesting against the leaders. So could you imagine that being the United States if people were out there protesting and somebody started just shooting them? Just people were going on with their everyday thing. And not too long ago, there was a flood in Libya. And there was they had warned them that these dams in Libya was going to bust. And nobody heeded. They didn't try to fix the dams, didn't do nothing. And then one day, 20,000 people were killed. So they were all sitting down to eat. There was probably weddings going on. Whatever happened. It's just life, everyday life. And that's how it's going to be when Jesus comes, isn't it? It's just going to be going through everyday life that we're going through. And then he's going to come and there's nothing going to be we can do then, are they? All of our hope is gone, isn't it? See, none of us know how much time we have on this earth until we die or until Christ returns. But we can choose to either walk with God with a determined faith like Noah did, or live in passive denial about what's happening in the world or even in our own hearts. We can deny His glory, His grace, His love, whatever He has for us. But when we deny Him, He will deny us. He'll say that I never knew you. See, in this account of the flood, we see God gave each person an opportunity to believe, but tragically, they refused to believe. And that's how it is now, isn't it? It's people falling away every day in this world. And I read this thing that a lot of people say, well, there really wasn't a flood. But in over 200 cultures across the world, they have their own account of a flood that happened. And different tribes of New Guinea, of the Indians of Arizona, Brazil, Peru, African, the natives of Greenland, Hawaiian, Hindu, Chinese, Egyptians, Greeks, Persians, Australia, Welsh, Celtics, Druids, Siberians, and Lithuania. 88% describe a favored family, 70% attribute survival to a boat, 95% say the sole cause was a flood, 66% say the disaster was due to man's wickedness, 67% record the animals were also saved, 57% say that survivors ended up on a mountain. And many accounts say that birds were being sent out, a rainbow, and 8 people were only saved. And now where do you think they all got their accounts from? I'll get to when they got where they got it from later on. But I think it was in the tower when they was all broke up. And they all had their own language and everything. And the waters prevailed on the earth 150 days. I was reading this commentary. It said that a lot of the animals were in hibernation. Because, just think about it. It would take a lot of food to feed all those animals and different kinds of food. And it doesn't say anything about them having to kill other animals or to bring food enough to kill the carnivore animals, does it? So I think God put a deep sleep over different animals so that they would sleep so they wouldn't want food. Except maybe the ones that eat grass. Because, they would have hay and stuff like that on there with them. And seeds and stuff like that. But Mike and I went to see the Ark in Kentucky. And it showed all the different kinds of food they had. They said even the animals eat grass then on the Ark. The ones that had to eat, that were carnivores, like the lions and everything. But I just don't know about that sometimes, I think. Yeah, they had to eat seeds and grass and stuff like that. Because he told exactly 2 by 2 are, the 7 different ones and the doves, 7. Right. They would have been eating each other if God hadn't done a hibernation some way with them, don't you think? See, God will always make a way for us no matter what we have. Sometimes we think we don't have a way of, God doesn't hear us sometimes. We think that. Or He's not listening. Or there's no way to get out of this situation. But God always makes a way for us. But we just have to listen. Sometimes we don't even listen. We don't even hear His voice. Like I said a while ago when I first started, we get out in the world and we want to hear what the world says, and we don't want to hear what God says, don't we? Or what God has for us. So, right. That's a lot of times we wouldn't, would we? So that's why we get in the altar and we pray, because we get one-on-one with God. That's the only way. You don't even have to get in the altar. You can pray where you're at. You can pray in your bed. You can pray wherever you're at. Because He's going to hear you. And you can pray with your heart. That's what He wants to hear. He wants to hear your heart. Because sometimes our mind has mind games, I guess you could say, but we want to hear, He wants to hear what your heart says. He wants to hear what you're talking to Him. And I asked my grandmother, because I didn't have very godly parents. And I always had only way I could get any kind of religion or anything from them was from my grandmother. And I said, how do I talk to God? I didn't really understand how you talk to Him. I said, I could pray, but how do I talk to Him? And she would tell me, she said, you see that chair sitting there? Pretend that's Jesus sitting there beside of you and just talk to Him. Or I like to climb trees, because I could climb a tree and I could get away from my mother or my daddy or whatever was going on. And I climbed the tree, and she would tell me, she said, whatever you're there when you're sitting beside that tree, think Jesus is up in that tree with you. Or wherever you are, just talk to him. You just talk to him just like I'm talking to you. You don't have to be in a, at the altar or anything, because there's a lot of times when I was a kid, I never got to go to church a lot because I had to walk everywhere. And then, like I said, I had a daddy that was alcoholic, and he sure didn't believe much for us to go into church. And my mother, she didn't believe in it much, so I didn't grow up in a church except for when my grandmother took me. But that's the way you talk to God, and that's the way you talk to Jesus. You just have to talk to him just like he's sitting there beside of you. And that's what he wants to hear. He wants us to talk to him. He wants to be your everything. You're supposed to put him first and then your family second. And when you do that in that order, everything else will fall into place. But see, sometimes we say we get the cart before the horse. We want to put our family, and we want to put our job, and we want to put what's going on around us first instead of God in first. And he wants to be first. He wants to be everything. He wants us to trust him. He wants to love you. And he wants us to love him. That's what we were made for. We were made to love him the most. See, the ark was not just built to house Noah and his family and the animals, but it was also for others to come in. And say that's what God wanted. He wanted everybody to be saved. He didn't want all those people to perish. And that's how it is with him now. He wants to love everybody. He wants everybody to come in. See, he gave Noah 120 years to preach to the people, to gather the food, to build the ark, and to tell everyone, you're going to be destroyed. But they didn't listen, did they? Yeah. I think there was a chance, everybody could come in. Just think about how big that ark. It was 3 floors. So God wanted everybody to have a chance. He, free will. Yeah, Noah wanted everybody because, like I said, he had family and everything that was out there in the world, and he wanted all them to be saved. I don't know exactly for sure, but there was probably cousins and aunts and uncles and all kinds of his family, yes. Yes. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Yes. Is Sue's right. So they had all those years to understand that God was he wouldn't put up with all this wickedness. And that's how we are. We've had all these years to understand that God's not going to put up with all the wickedness that's going on out here in the world right now. See, this was God's heart. This was he wanted his house filled. And that's his heart now. He wants his house filled. He wants heaven to be full of people rejoicing and worshiping him. He doesn't want just a few up there, does he? That's why he's constantly calling everybody every day, trying to get you to come to him, because he wants you to be there. He don't want you to be down lost, left down on this earth. Because you think it's bad now, just wait till there's no God around. Till his wrath turns out on here, until Satan is just let loose on the earth and there's no conviction or nothing down here. People will not even feel, it'll be just so bad that, because people have a conscience right now, a lot of people do. But when there's no God or no conscience, how's it going to be? Chaos. Yes, it's going to be terrible. See, our church, each one of you are like the ark. You're supposed to have active faith to tell others to come in, aren't you? We should all be telling somebody about what God has done for us. How he saved us. How he brought us through everything we've been going through. And I've seen it. And I know Chris has. And some of you others that have been through here before have seen how these people get their jobs and their wives and their kids. That their kids would never have nothing to do with them. But then they all of a sudden, they see that they've changed. And they end up a new person. So their little kids, your kids are looking up to you. They say, I want to be like Daddy. But when you're out in the world and they're seeing everything that you're doing out there, you don't want to be like Daddy, do you? And you sure don't want your kids to be like you. And that's what I always said with my daddy. I never wanted to be like my daddy. That's why I chose to be different than my daddy. See, God calls us to come to a place where our faith is in him and our trust and our walk through salvation. Every time you walk out of this door, somebody's watching you. When you go to your job, somebody's watching you on your job. They're seeing what kind of person you really are. Do you understand the importance of active faith? It means you trust God, don't it? If you didn't have any kind of faith at all, you would never trust him, would you? When we see everything we do and why we live, like building the ark, it becomes a testimony to others of the life that we have in Christ. See, our life is our testimony to others, isn't it? And that's what we have to have. We have to show how much, because what God done for us, he can do the same for anybody else. And we have to be that example. Because we want others to come to Jesus while there's still time. Because we know one day God's going to shut that door, isn't he? He's going to call Jesus, tell Jesus, okay, go get them. I'm done. And it's going to be an awful place when he does. So if you don't know him, I ask that you come and talk to Mike or Ron or somebody or me. And you got to open up your heart to him and what he wants for you.